Well, this is going to be an easy review. That was a fun movie. Before I get to that, my usual plugs. Go to my thank you to 500 subs video. It's a new Q&A. Leave your questions in the comments on that. I'll answer them this weekend. Go join the Room 237 Reviews Facebook group. And go check out the Room 237 Reviews Patreon. Read through the tiers, see what I'm offering, and see if you would like to be a patron. If so, greatly appreciated. If not, thank you all the same. And yeah, this is definitely way better than I expected it to be. Even though I had forgot who had directed it. But this is Crawl from last year, 2019. Directed by Alexander Aja, who of course directed High Tension, Hills Have Eyes remake. He did other Mirrors, which I saw when it came out, but I don't remember a thing from it. And yeah, he did Piranha 3D, which isn't that great, but I mean, he's a guy that knows how to make horror movies. I mean, he's up there with James Wan and, you know, Robert Eggers, although very different directors, but they know how to make good, effective horror movies. This is just as much a throwback to the 70s as, you know, movies like Terrifier and Stitches, and I'll even say Thriller, even though that's not a good movie. As much as that's a throwback to 80s slasher films, this is a throwback to both the disaster films and the nature killer animal movies of the 70s in a big, fun way. I mean, this, if you take the Poseidon Adventure and mix it, I mean, I guess with Jaws, but with alligators, but make it more like Deep Blue Sea, or hell, there's even parts that are just as intense as like the kitchen scene in Jurassic Park. I mean, this idea, this concept, I haven't seen a killer alligator movie like this. I mean, this is way better than Lake Placid. I know there's one from the 70s. I think it was either called Croc or Gator. It might have just been called Alligator. I mean, in 72, you had a movie called Frogs. And then I think in 77 or whatever, you had Squirm. But 75, you had Jaws, which then gave us, I mean, Grizzly. It gave us, you know, whatever Alligator one was out. Even if you add the melodrama to the animal, you have movies like Orca, which I like Orca. But, you know, this, okay, this is a movie that does not waste any time. This is a fast-paced movie. It's like 80-something minutes, but it goes nonstop. I mean, okay, so the whole setup is, it was produced by Craig J. Flores, who I believe worked on Hills Have Eyes as well. Produced by Sam Raimi. I do remember that. Because I remember when this came out, I know like Rambo Raff did a review. I know everyone did their review, but I hadn't seen it yet. It stars Chaos Scodelario, if I pronounced that correctly, and Barry Pepper. You've seen him before. He's been in a bunch of stuff. It's down in it opens up at the University of Florida in Gainesville. So yeah, home of the Gainesville Ripper, Danny Rolling. She's an athletic swimmer. Her sister lives in Boston. Her parents have just gotten divorced. This Category 5 hurricane is hitting. The whole city's being evacuated. Her dad, Barry Pepper's, not answering his phone. She goes out to their old house to see if he's okay. She finds him down in the basement, or the crawl space. He's been injured. And that's where they find out there's these large crocodiles down there. Or these large gators, I mean, these large Florida gators. And it becomes this cat and mouse survival game. But because of how the crawl space is set up in the hurricane, the crawl space is continuously flooding. And I want to say it takes place in real time. I don't know how true that is. I know at one point Barry Pepper says, you know, within an hour, this basement's going to be completely flooded. But yeah, the gators have come in through the storm drain. And, so yeah, I mean, Barry Pepper, his leg is, like, we see the bone sticking right out, is separated. He is a tough fuck through this whole movie. It does add some drama, you know, talking, because he was her coach as a kid. They talk about, you know, giving up on each other and the swim team, but it works. They have great chemistry together, whether they're having their heart-to-heart, you know, pep rally moments, or they're just being sort of sarcastic with each other. Their chemistry works really well. The dialogue was well written. So, yeah, it's like Poseidon Adventure disaster film, because this house is being destroyed and filled with water, but then you have the killer animal aspect because you have these 2 alligators down there. And yeah, the alligators are CGI. I mean, they look about as realistic as the apes in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. But I'm a little more lenient towards this. Just, I don't know why. It didn't bother me. I mean, I've seen worse. You go on any sci-fi channel, you know, Dino Croc versus, you know, Laser Barnacle or whatever. Any one of those stupid fucking movies. It's all horrendous CGI. I mean, this, probably the best you were going to get it. And these are like fast-moving alligators, you know, like Deep Blue Sea with the sharks. And it's like Deep Blue Sea because you have like 2 in the basement, and then you have like 5 outside, and they seem super intelligent. Like they all seem to hunt together. There's scenes where it's like, yeah, they are sort of working together, or like the raptors in Jurassic Park. But it also takes a little bit of like the home invasion subgenre, because, you know, in home invasion films, you know, the person across the street, or when the cops show up, something happens to make them unable to help. It wipes them out. That happens here. I'll get into spoilers eventually, but I mean, for its action, I mean, I forgive the CGI on the gators because the effects for everything else was well done. The destruction of the house, the wind in the palm trees and blowing everything around, that all seemed pretty legit. I thought that was all well done. And for how it looked, $13.5 million, and it made 91.5, so it was a hit. And I mean, Barry Pepper just keeps getting the shit beat out of him. I liken the gator attacks to like the bear mauling of The Revenant. It seems to have some very realistic, like what gators do. They bite a hole in you, they spin around. They toy with them by hitting the pipes in the house. Of course, you know, whenever there's help, that gets fucked up. They are kind of out in the middle of nowhere. The town's already been evacuated. She wasn't even supposed to go to that house, but she had to. And, you know, I like how this film goes on. Like, it starts out, this basement, you know, it's damp, but there's no water. And then just, I want to say in real time, but I could be wrong, it just fills up. You have some cool ways of how they stop the gators. I mean, there's one point where Barry Pepper, he's doing work down in this crawl space. There's like a jack holding a support beam up. And he takes his shovel and he hits it right as the gator comes, so it like collapses on him. And he's hitting it, but he like nearly decapitates it with a spade shovel. She goes out to the storm drain because she can't get out the basement stairs. She finds the nest with little baby gators. And then that's where she finds the body of a cop. She takes the gun. And I mean, right when she takes the gun, that gator bites right a hole of her arm. And she's just firing that thing in every direction inside that thing's mouth and throat. The pacing was outstanding. I mean, it might be a good 10-15 minutes before we see a gator, but it gets to the point. It stays moving. It never stays slow. Yeah, you might get a couple slow moments for a conversation between father and daughter, but it works because the performances are strong. I was surprised. I'm gonna say spoilers here. It's on Hulu. I will say disaster films and killer animal movies were never really my go-to for horror films or movies in general. I mean, I love Jaws. Jaws is one of my favorite films of all time anyway. But this, whether it was intended to or not, really just captures the disaster and killer animal subgenres of the 70s. It is like the Renaissance slashers made today, like Terrifier, but with those kinds of films. And again, the performances are solid. It's got atmosphere. I mean, it looks like they are in the middle of a hurricane. The non-stop tension. Again, a few scenes where they got to get by these gators, and it's like the kitchen scene in Jurassic Park. I definitely recommend it. I mean, I would consider this more of like a popcorn horror movie because it is, fast-paced. It is more things going on. Again, I've never been more like the nature horror. I don't count films like Sharknado or Super Croc versus Sci-Fi Channel, whatever. So the only real alligator, crocodile films I've seen would be the one for the 70s and the first Lake Placid. That's basically it. But I really enjoyed this movie, way more than I thought I would. Alexander Aja, really, great cinematography. It looks like it has a budget. It looks better than its budget, which is better than I could say for a lot of films made for the same amount of money. Yeah, the gators, their CGI. I know one of my followers, we talk about this every time in the comments. He hates CGI, but I mean, to get the movements that they wanted, get these crocodile, at least the CGI doesn't look shoddy. It looks, nice, fluid. It goes with everything else. It is effective. It's obvious CGI, but it works. So, if you haven't seen it, don't shit on it yet. I mean, it does work with the film. Alexander Aja, man, he knows how to get, good, like, adrenaline-pumping horror. Hills Have Eyes is a bit slower, but once he gets to that third act and, everything starts coming to a head, it really gets going. And yeah, the movie is that simple. It's the reason why I did not really have to go into the plot, because it really is father and daughter trapped in a crawl space of this house during a scale 5 hurricane. Large-ass gators get in, and they just gotta find their way to get up to a safe surface for rescue. And yeah, the gators do seem like, I know Brad Jones as Stone Gremlin called them like Jason Voorhees gators, which is true. These seem like super killer, you know, super hungry, super pissed off, born to kill steroid gators. I mean, there's like really cool scenes where you see like 5 of them attack one guy. Just definitely a fun movie to watch. Again, it's on Hulu. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And again, I'm not the biggest disaster killer animal guy, but I had a ton of fun with it. The performances are solid. I didn't really notice much of a score. It must have just went over my head. I didn't really notice one. The cinematography is great. It looks bigger than its budget. It really does look like they're in a hurricane. The effects around the CGI gators are very effective. And I was surprised because Alexander Aja can kill a dog in the desert with radioactive mutants, but the dog with gators everywhere, in a flood, in a hurricane, the dog lives. So, I don't know if that was a trick, if that was intentional. The second I saw that dog with her going in the house, I was just like, that dog's going to get it. It's going to be a sad scene. But no, I had a lot of fun with this movie. It was a good change of pace for everything I've been watching lately. I mean, I love these older movies. And then, of course, you know, all the supernatural shit I've been putting up with. But it's good to once in a while just get a good, you know, action-packed, fast-paced, to-the-point, popcorn, fun horror film. And I thought that was Crawl. So, I really enjoyed it. And that's it. So, thank you for watching.